Today, inside the vault, Fred and I break down ways to apply this week's virtue as believers, husbands, fathers, and friends. Whoever you are and wherever you are, we're glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's get back to good.
Welcome back. It's Monday. It has been I feel like I just saw you, and I feel like it's been forever since I've seen you.
Right.
I just saw this man in Paris, and it felt like an amazing trip, a refreshing trip, a whirlwind trip. We're getting back to good. Flexibility is the conversation. We might have some fun Paris stories and some hilarious dad stories. I don't know, man. But Fred,
You gotta go there already.
maybe. I don't know. Say what's up to the people. What's going on? How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You're right. We had a great time. We had a really not one in a lifetime trip, but definitely, hopefully, one for the books. Got to take the girls a couple of places that I've had the pleasure of traveling to, and then passed it by you and Laura, and you were like, "Game, we're in." And
Yeah.
it was great that we were able to get this thing worked out, that you guys could join us in Paris, and then we took the kids to Disneyland, which was an adventure. So it was great. It was great. And then I came back, and then we did a vacation after vacation. I'm sorry, I can't leave that out. And just for
No.
all the dads out there that have any children, I would say multiples, but it could be one. A family trip is very different than vacation. I think I don't need to say anything more about that.
Yes.
We love them both.
They're very necessary. But yeah, you took time away just with Donnie, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely. It was
That's
good. Went to the mountains.
good for y'all.
Peaceful.
Yeah, the family trip and seeing you guys was fantastic. But I mean, my vacation is coming in about a month. So beginning of October, we're going down to Florence in Italy.
That's right.
My mom will come out here, stay with the girls for a couple nights. And I already have some things booked, some amazing restaurants booked, getting some good steak. And oh man, so there's some good things on the docket. That will be our vacation. Not to detract from how wonderful it was to connect and be with the girls, but
Right.
that'll be mom and dad time. So it's a whole nother level when it's that.
If you know, you know. Just being honest.
Flexibility. Can you
There you
flex? Can you enjoy all of it and be both and instead of either or? I think you need it. But yeah, before we jump into this, I mean, I framed it up. I had Jens on. That was a great conversation. Go check that out. Really good colleague of mine. Brought a good perspective. But again, this is a little bit more of a discipleship, faith-based, and then just application, diving into how Fred and I do it. So this is just sort of raw, unfiltered, uncut. This is Fred and Josh. So when you think of flexibility right now, where you're sitting today on this Sunday as we record, it's not Monday yet, but I said welcome to Monday because by the time I drop it, it will be. So Sunday, the 7th of September, how does flexibility hit your heart and your mind as you think on it?
Anyone who knows me would laugh at whatever I'm about to say after this moment, because I'm just going to admit it, and I think I've said it on this podcast many times. I am a very routine person. But let's just be honest about that.
Yep.
Some of my success has been because I am a very routine person.
That's fair.
But with that and with life, there have absolutely been some things that have happened, the unexpected, that have caused me to have to very quickly, I say adjust, be flexible. I think that's it. I think flexibility is an interesting word because I think it can go two ways. I think there's the one way that, you've kind of mentioned, where being open to different ways of doing things, being open to changing course, direction. But sometimes there's this flexibility in your ability to withstand over time. Like, how flexible are you in a way that even through time, the core of who you are remains the same, even though the circumstances and maybe the environment can change. So there's that flexibility, but there's also the flexibility that, hey, what you've done in that season no longer is acceptable, and it's time to do something different. How open are you to that? So I think for me, I've gotten to a place I'm a little bit more flexible in the changing of things. So if I have to change direction, if I had a plan for something, it needs to change, I'm a little bit better than that. Where I am not as flexible, if I feel very convicted about something, it is hard for me to change and bend with an environment that may not align to either what I believe or what I'm thinking. That's an
Right.
area I can absolutely say I probably have more opportunity to be open to a different way of doing things, a different way, perception, that sort of type thing. But there's just so many opinions, Josh, right? And you get to a certain point, like let's just be honest, right? You get to a certain point in life, you've tried so many things, and when something is working, it is difficult. I'll just be honest. It's difficult to see it a different way, especially if it's been proven to be true in your life. What I will say, marriage has absolutely softened me
Mhm.
in some of that. At some point we'll have to get my wife on this to either
Oh, Donnie's
agree or oh yeah, yeah,
Donnie's coming,
agree.
y'all. So,
That's right.
so I mean, come 2026, let's just throw it out there, off the hinges. We're already working it. Donnie and I are going to chop up a virtue, and maybe, based on what he's saying, maybe there will be a back to good where we bring Laura and Donnie on here. You never
Hey,
know. Hey,
I love it,
hey,
right?
that'd be cool.
To
They,
see the
they,
expressions, to see the truth. But yeah,
we
I
just
think there
fade
are
into
two
the back, and
ways.
they'd go to town.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
and y'all would ask for more of that probably because it'd be way better. Let's be real.
But yeah, man, when it comes down to being flexible and having to quickly change, adjust, I think
Mhm.
at this stage in life, I've had to do it so many times. Resiliency, people call it, whatever, right? I think
Sure.
I've learned that and to be open to it. Yet when it comes down to things that have been more core of my belief, my thought, not as flexible on some of that. I have pretty
Right.
much stuck to this is what I believe. Now, my belief doesn't make someone else's belief wrong. It just means this is what I believe and how I govern
Right.
my life. Be very
Right.
clear about that, right? There's the
Yep.
distinction when you're starting to push your beliefs into someone else. But, at the core of who I am, there're just certain things I do and I don't do. And
Yeah.
I don't apologize for it, nor do I feel any type of way of saying, I don't do this. I'm not going there. I don't want this. This is the way I do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, there is some opportunity always
Right.
for more flexibility on that side. How about you, man?
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'll before we jump in, we'll do our typical head, hands, and heart, and frame that with maybe a scripture anchor, and then talk about it. But I don't typically read things that I've already written out there and sort of published out there. But I also appreciate that probably not many people actually dive into this. And if you do, that's awesome. Good job. But I don't expect that because this is all stuff I'm teeing up for future for research phase anyway that I'll be doing. But I'm going to read what I put into Substack because I always put a lot of thought, and we talked about this before we click record. I always try to put a lot of original thought and not use AI or GPT to try and write my own stuff. I try to actually pour into the stuff I'm creating here to be creative of my own. Of course, I mean, I won't lie. I use GPT to be a nice editorial assistant because why not? It might catch like, oh, you wrote this word twice, but I'm never using it to create for me. So when this story and this framework of how I view flexibility is very unique, and I'll be honest, like it's not that I have anything too original all the time, but I've never heard anyone frame it the way that I framed it. And it resonated with me different. And listening to you explaining, I can be flexible, but I don't know how to say it. I don't change the core of who I am. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm just going to read this verbatim as I wrote it. And then I'll sort of kick it over to you and be like, thoughts on this? Because this is something that was impressed through a lot of time working construction with my dad. And I really think it's cool. And it's almost like things that you would see when Jesus would use parables or stories or analogies to bring his truths to life in scripture. It's really cool when those moments happen inside my own mind. Like I might see something in nature, or I might see something that I'm working at with my hands. And then something that I'm thinking on, a virtue or characteristic or something I'm struggling through, trying to wrap my head around, it just clicks. And it's like, ooh, this was a really good takeaway. Like this is a perfect analogy for me. So if this doesn't land with people listening, that's fine. I don't expect it to land. But if it does, I'm encouraged by that because for me it did. So I'll read it. So just from top to bottom, this might take a couple minutes and I'll kick it back over to Fred. So here's what I wrote at the beginning of it. So the title of it was Expansion Joints versus Spalling Apart. And spalling is a word that you use for concrete that's starting to crack and chip and fall away. So I didn't mean falling apart. I meant spalling apart. But try to think of this connection for everyone listening to yourself, to your relationships, to your teams, to your cultures, if you're at work, your leadership, organizational structure, whatever. Okay. So inflexible people, ideas, and things are just the worst. Perhaps a concrete sidewalk you pour that starts to crack and fall apart because you failed to include expansion joints. Perhaps a relationship or a culture you pour your life into that yields the same results for the same reasons as a failed concrete. Here's the thing. The untrained eye will blame the external factors for a failed structure. The wise engineer and builder immediately notices the missing design for flexibility. Perhaps a failed relationship or organizational culture should first look to the leadership design, because flexibility is internal before it's external, always. The design, construction, and demise of a life that's void of flexibility will take a toll on our head, hands, and heart. So if you walk past a sidewalk or a driveway long enough, you will notice it. Cracks that spider out, they fall apart because the concrete was poured without expansion joints. So even the strongest looking slab, the facade that externally looks like it's eternal, can't endure freeze-thaw cycles of the seasons, the repeated weight of traffic, or the steady stress of shifting ground without room to flex. These aren't accidents. They're forecasted forces that a wise builder must anticipate. Flexibility isn't the same as resilience, though the two are connected. Resilience helps the structure bounce back after strain. Flexibility is what makes that resilience possible in the first place. It's the intentional design that allows the structure to endure stress without fracturing. Without an expansion joint, even the strongest concrete will fail. With an expansion joint, it serves its true purpose. So people and cultures are no different. Leaders who design without flex points hold for a while, but eventually the same stressors that should have been accounted for from the beginning cause fractures. And what about the facade? The restructuring of an organizational chart, or maybe your 30 pieces of flair, they project an image of strength, but without an ability to flex and adapt to each interaction, whether planned or unplanned, internal or external, it eventually fractures. So I grew up watching this long before I had words for it. My dad worked construction, and I can still picture him coming home with concrete stains on his boots and clothes. He built foundations, tree houses, sidewalks, skyscrapers, and he raised me to work with my hands. So the long days, the dust and the sweat, it planted a respect for grit and design into my heart. And the lessons weren't just in construction, they were around our dinner table. So on a personal side, my dad would invite coworkers home, and they came from every walk of life, every nationality, every economic level. And we were kids in booster seats and in chairs, pulled tight to the table, passing bread and butter, next to men who spoke broken English, different languages than we did. And they had just finished long 12-hour shifts, men who had seen different corners of the world and carried very different burdens. No one was above or below my dad's desire to share a meal that he had worked hard to provide for his family. So what stuck with me wasn't just that he was generous, but it was his flexibility. He could laugh with one man, listen deeply to another, and challenge a third. And he knew how to flex in order to forge strong bonds. And I watched those men who had little in common with one another, grow closer because one man built space for them at the same table. And so expansion joints aren't flaws. It's not a happenstance. It's not a random cut in concrete. It's a sign of wisdom. It's a sign of an intentional creator, an intentional designer. And without them, we as people can crack and fall apart. And I think with them, we endure. So when I took this connection, and that's sort of like the end scene of what I wrote to tee into what we're talking today. But that really stuck with me because you look at those cuts in a sidewalk and those cracks and you're like, oh, you step on a crack, you break your mom's back. We play those jokes. We play those games. Everybody does it. But without that, if it's a solid piece, and the thing you said that really resonated to me, man, and it really connected, like, I think we're both onto sort of the same thing here with this virtue. I don't change the core of my character. The characteristics of that concrete when you pour it, it's the same. It's poured from the same batch. It's just as strong as all the concrete around it. But without the ability to flex and to adapt and to forecast and make space for the changes that it knows are going to be coming, it's a part of its character. It actually makes that strong character even stronger and keeps it from splintering apart and falling apart and chipping away. And so to tee that into sort of getting into our mindset of this, I won't read the whole passage, but in 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23, you can read it all. The Apostle Paul talks about how basically he learned to become all things to all people for the same purpose. So I might talk to one person that's a Jew, one person that's outside of the law. This other person is doing this. And he said, I don't change who I am, but I change my posture. I change my presentation to match them stride for stride to connect. And so when I think of that, like he was building an expansion joints. I know I got to be different here. I can't be the same cookie cutter me. And as a leader, man, I'm not even going to lie. Like even rereading my words now, I am deeply challenged at how poorly I probably actually do the same thing I'm speaking about today. Like I'm on no pedestal just because I'm talking about it. If anything, I'm more challenged because I'm like, yo, that's hard. So everyone has their different lens on how they view different virtues and traits. And I think that's what makes us cool as a community. But that's the way I've been approaching this one is like, it's something that I need to have integrated into my design as a leader and as a man and as a husband and a father and all of the things you and I always talk about. How flexible by design am I? Or am I just rigid? Am I just one solid slab that's like, nope, don't cut those joints in me. I'm good. And then one freeze thaw cycle hits me and man, I'm cracking. So that's a long intro from me, but that's sort of where my mind's been on this. And I am still sort of struggling through how well I am applying this thing. That's what we're talking about. So gladly back over to you because that's a lot, man. That's a lot.
It is. It is. I want to speak to a couple of different points that you made. It's interesting in work, but also when I was telling you the two different aspects of flexibility that I see in my life. In the ability to be resilient, what I have learned to do, and I'm going to be very transparent, not always by intention, but by experience, is to build in, not physically, but build in space for God's direction and will to be done. There's nothing wrong with us making plans and us coming up with schedules and ways we like doing things and all of that. But your spacers that you're talking about, to me, when I hear that, immediately kind of if I had to think about capacity. So I work in an environment where I manage product managers and we deal with scrum teams and stuff like that. And we always talk about capacity. And there's something that we do of allocating a certain amount of capacity always in any type of, they call them program increments. I'm trying not to be too technical here, but the whole point is you're delivering work consistently. In the delivery of that work, you allocate a piece of your time, your capacity, what we call defects. And you can schedule out all your capacity, but there's this piece that you leave open just in case something happens. If something goes wrong, you need to fix something that immediately needs to be addressed. And I feel like that's to some degree how I have lived, again, the part of my life when plans not fail, but they are derailed or things change or there's shifts. Having some piece of capacity allocated so that you are open to whatever the change is just makes it easier, period. I think the second part of what you're talking about is really interesting because I also think about personally my career. And I had this conversation with my team a few weeks ago. I believe one of the successes of my career, when I look back at what are those key things that every person should probably have, is their ability to be flexible in their leadership style. And when I think about how I have had to adjust, and this could go really, really deep. I know some people know exactly where I'm going, but I won't go there completely because I think that's a cultural thing to deal with.
Sure.
But as a leader, independent of your cultural differences, you have to understand that everyone in your team does not receive and perceive things the same. So you have to figure out how individual players on your team best work. And that is a necessity of a leader to first desire to want to understand how to reach that person, but also to be flexible in their approach in dealing and interacting with that person. There isn't a one size fit all. It does not exist. And I have seen people who call themselves leaders who don't have that type of flexibility, spacers, don't add capacity for their leadership style. And in my opinion, they're very short lived.
Right.
I just have not
It is.
seen anyone successfully, right? To your point, continuously, right? We all have always opportunity to get better at it. But if you are so rigid in one way of doing things and no one else's ideas, no one else's thought, you're not taking in different experiences. Again, I'm going to bring it in just for a little bit. Cultural differences, age differences.
Hey man, like I think it's good that you go there though, because it's real.
Right.
Because if we don't talk about it
Yeah.
in a healthy way,
Yes.
not in an inflammatory way,
Right.
who does?
Right.
Who does? Because
Right.
I hear a lot of jaw jacking on both sides of the fence that's really inflammatory or really polarized
Yeah.
that isn't actually there to try and like
Yeah.
be peaceable and come to a little
Yes.
bit of a conflict resolution and some unification.
Yeah.
So there's so much just diversion and division and just like throwing chasms in the middle of people.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, I'm just going to be blunt with it by the way I believe, man. That's just straight up evil.
It is.
There is nothing, we're getting back to good, and there is nothing good about when you are trying to wedge apart people.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to label on that. And if someone listening to this immediately goes, yeah, but this, then you better check yourself because you're exactly who I'm talking to.
Right.
If you're immediately layering in a group or an individual that might not apply to, that could be divided out and separated out, then you're the problem.
Yeah.
And we all struggle with it. I'm not saying I'm above that, but like you are the problem.
Yeah.
You are who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Like, and you're probably not even listening to me, to be quite honest and blunt right now. You probably either never started listening to me or at this point you tuned out. But if you're still here, I'm glad you're here, because like we all struggle with these rifts against who we think we should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when you read that, like Paul in Corinthians, he was a very intelligent man and he came from a certain cloth, and he said, I've learned that I really need to be someone to everyone.
Yeah.
And that didn't mean, and some people look at that like, oh, you're two-faced.
Yeah.
No, when I read that, I really see such a strong connection and pairing with how he communicated verbally and non-verbally. That's what I take away from that.
Yeah.
Like the way I presented and communicated and connected, the way I was present with and for other people.
Yes.
Not to make a point, but to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And your communication will follow one of those two paths.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively, if you want to be real.
Yeah.
You're either communicating to make a point, which is very you-focused and egocentric, or you are there for other people to make a difference. And then your communication takes a different shape. It becomes more flexible because you go like, I can't. Let me give you a perfect example, man. This is me throwing my stuff out there for everybody. So I learned this the hard way after a couple times, and sometimes I'm reminded about it. If I communicate to my oldest, Aria, and I mean, this is going to land better with you because you just spent some time with him in Disney. Man, we got some funny stories on Aria. Maybe we won't even go there. But let's just start with simple. Let's start simple. If I communicate to Aria and she's not paying attention, and she's a very strong-willed, like she's on her path, I don't ever yell at my children, but I will sternly call out to her if she needs to like snap out of it. And she is a very strong, emotional girl. And that is the way I have to communicate to her. And it gets her attention and she'll look at me, she'll stop, she'll say, yes, sir. And then I'm calm again, but I have to get like a little bit forceful to get her out of her own headspace. Man, I have done that to my demise with Karina. Like I tried it a couple times because she wasn't paying attention. And the first time I did it, she's such a little sweetheart, but she pulled her little glasses off and her eyes were just like pools of water, just streaming down her face. And I'm never trying to communicate to any of my daughters to drive them to tears or to drive them away from me. And she went running to Laura and grabbed Laura's leg, like on the opposite side of Laura's leg, and didn't even want to look at me, like she was trying to hide from me because I scared her. And man, that crushed my heart. So I was like, yo, I just like scared my daughter. That's like fear-based leadership. That's fear-based parenting. I was like, and I'm sort of like getting teared up right now because I was like, total opposite of what I wanted to do. But we all have those moments, and it hits different. But with Karina and I had to get down and give her a hug and kiss and say, I'm so sorry. But I'm still learning it, but I'm having to learn a different way of communicating to her. And it works for Aria. It's not that the way that I speak to Aria is wrong.
Yeah.
But when you extrapolate that or expand that out macro a little bit as a leader, people will look at leadership styles and be like, you shouldn't do this. Actually, maybe he or she should with that person or group.
Right.
But maybe not to the other one.
Right.
So like, don't say it's wrong unless it's vindictive or evil or malicious. That might resonate there. And then that probably can't copy paste over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that a lot, and it's helped me reflect as a leader and in the corporate or business world as well, for whether it's coaching people or dealing my own thing within the military. Like, it's okay if that works here, if it's not wrong and it's not the wrong reasons. But don't think you can just slap that on another situation and it's going to fly, because it doesn't. And you might get the Karina response, but it may not be like that. It might be a grown adult, but they're just going to tune you out and hide around the corner.
Right.
And so I think that's the communication to me has been really resonating with this flexibility, because I think for me, it's my ability to flex my messaging. And I don't know how that lands on you, but that's the one I've been struggling with in the home, man.
Yeah. No, it's real, man. I think the word you used earlier was connect. And I think when it comes down to leadership, parenthood, your intent should always be to connect. And you should be willing to be flexible in order to connect with that person. Right. And if you're not willing to be flexible, then you should really check yourself as a parent and as a leader. Because there's no way, to your point, which I completely agree with you, and my three are the same. Very different approaches. And again, because of the time we spent, you also know. There's a huge variance in my aggressiveness and some of my just body language that can influence some versus others. It is absolutely a tone and a voice that has to be used in order to get certain people's attention. And at the end of the day, you're right. I think it all depends on what your intent is and what point are you starting in your heart from. If you're starting from a place, like you said, I love that, from a place of anger or for ill will or evil intent, it's wrong, regardless of who the person is. But if truly in your heart, your desire is to do right by the person, you're trying to communicate, connect, give direction, give leadership, educate, whatever it is. Again, parenthood, leadership at work, in your communities, in your church, regardless of what it is. You have to be in a place to understand that you're going to deal with different people, and you have to be willing to adjust your style in order to accomplish the mission. For our kids is making them, or whatever that may be, in the 18 years, I know culturally this is different, but let's just say for most of us, we think in the terms of before college, to give them the development socially, exposure, as well as other things to make them good humans and contributing citizens, right? So you got 18 years to do that, whatever that number might be. Some people it's longer. But the whole point is you need to connect with that child to be able to instill those things, because if you're just doing it one way, it doesn't necessarily mean that the child is learning. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. Yeah. So you have to be flexible. Even in, I love what you said about discipline. You know, I have I have tried many approaches. I will say that. And let's just
Hey, we're just gonna say it. We love you, but Lydia, we love you, but I guarantee you take a different style, because I've seen the way you look at your daddy, and you are straight thug sometimes, girl. You told her something, and she gave you this look like, and it wasn't even bad. I was just like, oh, she's got a different fire in her belly, my man. Oh, man.
By far. It's not about those
the conversations we have. Once I got to spend a few days down there, a couple days, it came to life. That canvas became a fully animated Pixar, and it was fantastic, as it did for you with my girls. And I was like, oh, man. Now I know a whole nother level of being Fred. This is so good.
Do you remember? I'm going on target for 1 second. Do you remember? Was it last summer? I think it was. Remember, it was Lydia again, and we were talking about the bike, right? Different approach, different kids. and having to approach them very differently. I had the conversation before we went on our little walk to say, hey.
Was it a bike or a scooter?
It was a scooter. You're really good. It was a scooter.
Because we were FaceTiming and I saw the stink eye she gave you and you said, no, ma'am, carry it. And I was like, tell the story because this is so good, man. Talk about flexibility.
Oh gosh!
Baby.
Last summer, just very quickly. Last summer, we were walking a lot.
Oh,
it was great.
got me crying,
we had
man.
a lot of time with the family, and we had gotten up to almost 2.5 miles. That we would do again. Keep in mind, my kids at that point she was just little older than 4, 7, and 9. And we had been doing this every day, and they had gotten to a point where they had gotten these scooters. But the problem was this one particular scooter, there were 2 scooters, but one particular scooter would always break. I don't know why. It would the handle would snap off. And I kept telling them, I'm like, look, before we go on the walk, they're like, hey, can we take the scooters? And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Daddy's not carrying these scooters. We're going 2 miles. I'm not walking back with a scooter. And my youngest, it's always that third one, she's determined. I want to ride the scooter. I want to ride the scooter. Okay, fine, ride the scooter. We get halfway. And the scooter breaks in the middle of the street. And she's looking at me, I'm looking at her. And basically I told her, I'm like, I'm not carrying it. So it's totally on you. You are carrying this. And I think Josh called me or something, some reason we connected during the walk and it just happened. Yeah. And at that moment I flipped the phone to him because I was like, this is what I'm dealing with right now. And she had 2 pieces of a scooter. Imagine 4-year-old. Yeah, I know. 2 pieces of a scooter she's carrying down the street. And somehow, for the record, I think this taught her something. 2 things. First of all, determination. She figured out a way to fix the scooter. Before we got home, the scooter was back together again. That's one. But I promise you, she didn't take that scooter again. Mm-hmm. Lesson learned. She's like, no. I don't trust this. This thing can break on me. So again, different approaches. I would have never had to have done that with my oldest. No. I would have just said.
And let's backtrack. So dads, we got you on this one. There are times where you don't have to be flexible. When you say a thing,
right,
it's the thing.
Right.
That ain't what we're talking about. We're not talking about chasing the wind with your direction.
No.
The also, Liddy was set, incredibly.
The expectation had been set.
There were 2 opposing wills that were highly inflexible when I saw Fred flip on FaceTime. He said, "Oh boy!" All I heard, I remember almost verbatim the first words out of your mouth because I think y'all were crossing the street and you just looked down and you said, "No, ma'am, no, ma'am." Cross the street, and I said, "Oh man, that sounds just like me with my girls." And then he said, "Look at what I'm dealing with," and he flipped it, and I saw her just giving my screen the stink eye back, and I was like, "Oh Lord." And then I got the story. But
gotta love it.
It's comical and not to make a long reach, but it's true. Like the way you have to communicate, there are times you got to be firm and solid, of course. And we're not talking, and that's the difference. Don't misinterpret this discussion on flexibility as a leader, as a parent, is saying like, oh, you should bend and cave. Oh, you can give in sometimes. I actually don't think that's healthy. It's proven that it's not healthy when your word has to be your bond.
Yes.
And here's a word that I'm going to throw in there into this mix as we talk about flexibility. I talked about it some with Jens, but especially from a faith perspective and from the way that I know you and I are trying to raise our little girls with our wives. There is a word that's really stuck with me with this flexibility as a leader, that if we can be truly flexible and communicate well, it builds us up probably quicker than anything, is trust. So there's so many things that layer into this topic of flexibility, and it might seem like I'm just jumping on all the lily pads here, but like communication, the discipline. I'm talking with yourself right now. I'm not talking about the other people. I'm talking away, because people will say, oh, you think about a thing and then you communicate and then you act. Your communication is an act.
Yeah.
So your communication is a behavioral action. It's not just like, oh, I say a thing, then I do the thing. Sometimes you saying the thing is doing the thing, especially as a dad.
Yes.
So you better like dot your I's and cross your T's and like choose your P's and Q's wisely, because everything you say, they're waiting on it, especially once they start getting enough recollection to be like, ooh, I can use that against him if he does.
Absolutely.
So like we have to be so choice with the words we say, but when we're honest to say I made a mistake there, when we hold firm to direction we've given, but then when we can be flexible, this is where like getting into the hands part of it. I wrote this down for myself. It was a question that I put as a reflection, but it's really because one I challenged myself with, and it's hard. It's what is it like for others to experience you when they present an approach that they know differs from your desired approach.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to think to like a corporate or business or military standpoint. I was thinking about inside the proverbial four walls of my home.
Amen.
If my wife or my girls go, can we do this? And they know it's different than what I've already said maybe I would want to do, but I didn't say we will do it or it must be done this way. What's it like, not just to hear me say something, but what is that experience like?
Mm-hmm.
And I would challenge its dads. I've done this before. Ask your kids.
Yeah.
Not in that moment. Ask them like, hey, what's it like to experience daddy? Hey, what was that like to experience what dad said? And then don't clap back to them. Don't have a retort or a response. Listen to them. Yeah. Like maybe buy them an ice cream where you know they're happy and they'll be honest. Yeah. That's the kids' truth serum.
Yeah.
So like that's the kids' version of pouring on a bottle of bourbon and saying, okay, now open up to me. But they do. And then if you listen to that, that has been like hand over fist. That has been so helpful and healthy for me to hear their untethered responses of like either good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Yeah. And then I have to take that and actually try to sharpen myself from it.
Right.
And then talk through that with them. And if it's good, be like, oh, I'm so glad to hear that. If it's bad, which it is sometimes, be humble enough to apologize. But the trust that can be built from being flexible to where you know daddy likes to do this thing this way.
Yeah.
But now you've presented this and I'm going to let you lead the charge on this and we will do it this way. If you can flex from your rigidity in those moments, I think as a dad, I've seen that build trust with my girls like this.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them that. I'll be like, I trust you. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So building, man, you say like, okay, you get to 18, maybe something that sort of benchmark, maybe they go to college, whatever. That's sort of like the golden ticket of like, you raise them to that point of being able to like fly the coop and be on their own. What are you doing to that point? And so much of it has to deal with trust.
Yes.
Training them to be resilient when difficulties hit them. And pun intended, some of the foundation on this to me is how flexible of a leader am I in my home? Yeah. Or is it just dad's the way or the highway?
Yeah.
Or am I inclusive, again, to communicate and as a leader to connect with them where they are at, not where I hope they are at.
Yeah.
And man, that's trust layers in so perfectly to me to this, but it's like, as a dad, it's been hitting me hard lately.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. It's interesting you said that. But then there's the other side of it, Josh. What are we doing to teach our kids how to be flexible? So not even just on the side as parents and as fathers being flexible, but it's not innate for people to be flexible. Like I feel like naturally it is easy to be rigid and to be very inflexible. In your
can we throw the real word on that? What that is?
Yeah.
To me, it's pride.
It's fair.
Not always, but a lot of my rigidity comes because like I want my way.
Yeah.
So like it does come down to pride, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much of it. Not always, but a lot of it for me anyway. I can speak from my heart.
It's true. And I think what you were saying, oftentimes in order to check myself, because I love what you guys are doing in your family, and we do that in a slightly different way. We do table talk, and we'll have these conversations, and people will ask questions, and people should, hopefully, we're all giving honest, open responses. And my wife has said that to me before. Like there have absolutely been topics that she has avoided because she knew how very determined or rigid I was about a certain thing. And you're right. That's not quite the response you want to get from your wife. I will say what I've done on some of those topics is, first of all, ask myself, because I think it starts internally. Why do you feel so strongly about this thing? And what is it that you fear if it doesn't happen this way of what's going to happen, right? Because it's always going to be rooted and attached to something else, right? And I feel that's where most people have a level of difficulty with flexibility, because there's a fear either I'm going to flex too much either into something that I am unfamiliar with, or to your point, not getting what I believe I want out of the situation. Here's the thing, though, not understanding there's possibly another way to get the same output or ending.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that most of us get tripped up on, is that when we see a path and the path doesn't materialize in the way that we anticipated, I feel like that's where we get spun up in the how versus to what was the original objective. And it could be, to your point, family or work. What was the goal? What were we trying to accomplish? Are we able, and this is what I've had to ask myself, am I able still to get the same outcome if I take this different path?
Right.
Is this just a personal preference? That's the difference. Because a lot of what we experience is we are dealing with, I hate to use the word, but I'll use it, trauma. I know all the psychologists out there are like, please stop using that word, but I get it. But it's the best word I can think of right now. But the situations in life that have left us with probably some scars, most of us are trying to avoid ever going back to that place. So we lock ourselves in to this one way in an attempt, because you and I both know that's not how life really works. But in our heads, it makes total sense, right? We're like, okay, even for people but with money, right? Spending. I'm only going to spend this amount of money. No, you can't spend $1 over that. No, this is our budget. We can't do this. We can't. And it's the fear, because probably at some point, either you were without or you have a fear of being without.
Right.
But then you're like, well, wait a minute. Is the only way to have things is to be so rigid around a budget that you can't have other things? There's other ways to do it. I tell my wife all the time. There's 2 ways to deal with lack. Either you make more money or you spend less. There's 2 ways.
Right.
Just spending less isn't always the answer. There could be other options, and a person being flexible to other ways of doing things can still probably get you the same outcome, but you've got to be open to it. And
Absolutely.
I think that's the thing of not only we as fathers or as adults, but how are we teaching our kids when life presents, even at the ages where they are now, challenges and twists that don't necessarily look like the way they anticipated? How do we teach them how to respond to that in a way that doesn't completely, throw them totally off, off balance or off key,
Well, and your word that you threw in there, first of all, I think you're spot on. And I also think there's a word that you use that you're like, oh, psychologists are going to freak on this. But I'm going to challenge everybody, because I have to remind myself of this sometimes also. I think it is such a commonly used term, and it's an easy button for people to talk about trauma. And people bastardize that word and misinterpret that word and replace that word with, in their own minds, adversity. And those two are totally different.
I love it.
So in an effort to not talk about your trauma, I don't want to face trauma again, you're avoiding necessary adversity and tension in life and in relationships. And that is the only way you grow and get sharper. Adversity drives excellence. If you aren't ever confronted with a challenge, you don't grow. And you and I talk about these things a lot because it's easy, because we try to stay healthy and fit and go to the gym. If there's no tension and even ripping apart of those muscle fibers, they don't grow. So I'm not talking about like you ruptured your bicep because you're an idiot and you actually are inflexible. You should probably stretch them. Or you're lifting too much weight or not getting full range of motion. But let's talk about this range of motion from an emotional range of motion. If you're not emotionally stretching yourself and trying to be flexible enough to work on parts of yourself inside that you aren't really dialed into. So what do you need to prune back and tune up to be well-balanced emotionally? We call it emotional intelligence. Sure, I give assessments and I'm validated in that. But even all the behavioral science stuff to the side, just as a regular person, a layman, anybody could get this. Like, stop trying to use trauma where you're just trying to avoid adversity.
Yeah.
Like, can we knock it off?
Yeah.
Can we stop that? Because adversity is not bad. So quit protecting your children from stuff they need to struggle with. And then throwing this lipstick on a pig and saying like, oh, I'm keeping them from daddy's trauma. No, you're not. You're being a chump.
Yeah.
You're not being a good parent. Like, they need to know how to struggle with that, because when the real world hits them, what are they going to do, man?
Absolutely.
Or woman, or whoever you are raising your kids, what are they going to do?
Right.
So quit using this trauma as a cop-out for not letting your kids struggle
Yeah.
and not teaching them to flex.
Yeah.
And so there are ways, and practically for us, like you asked, like, what are we doing? There's so many times that I think behaviorally, in that question I asked, like, what's it like for other people to experience you when they present a different way that they know you didn't want to do?
Yeah.
I force my daughters sometimes, usually my older daughters, because I tell the oldest one, you're going to be a little bit humble right now. And it does come down. I see the pride just rearing up. It comes to a pride and humility battle with my girls a lot. I want this. I want to watch this movie. And sometimes I'll take them all out of the picture. If it's family movie night and they're arguing and it's like the little one's choice, but they're all arguing, I'll say, good. Now none of y'all are picking. Laura, what would you like to watch?
Right.
And so a lot of teaching flexibility is teaching humility.
Yeah.
Because flexible people are humble enough to realize that it's not my way or the highway, man.
Yes.
And there's a cool thing we talk about, maybe not through this lens, but in the military, I normally don't bring much military stuff in, but this might resonate, hopefully, especially for the military people. But when we call it like mission type orders, or when you're giving like a task in the military, a commander always gives a purpose, a method, and then an end state or a future state. So your purpose is like, this is our task and this is our purpose. This is like our mission statement. That's not uncommon. A lot of like corporations have mission statements and vision statements and whatever. But in the military, there's a very specific way. So a commander will say, this is my purpose. And then this is the method. And then this is like how I envision it to look at the end. And the best commanders, the best mission type orders are where you are very firm on the purpose and the future vision or the future state you hope to have. And then the method is decentralized and you leverage the creativity and the productivity and the skills of your team. So you don't dictate the stuff in between. You say, this is the purpose. That's unwavering. We have to do this.
Yep.
And this is what it will look like in the end. And how you go about that, impress me. Show me what's up.
There you go.
And when the best commanders I've worked with, the best leaders I've seen, even outside of the military, are really good at giving a vision, giving a task, giving a purpose, telling them what they want it to be like in the end, having that strategic long ball game, and then getting out of the minutia that doesn't matter. You ain't running the show, man.
Right.
Be hands off. Let your people be your people and do your thing. And that allows space for flexibility because the micromanagers that I just need the back brief. No, you just, again, inflexible leaders don't trust their people. They are proud leaders. It has to be the way they did it when they were a planner growing up. Or when I came up through the trenches, let me tell you, boy, well, you ain't there anymore, boy, so back off. Or if you want, quit making your money and get back in the trenches then, and we'll get a new leader. But you can't be both and.
Right.
So I think when you start crossing those lanes and you misinterpret and misappropriate those roles, organizationally, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Outside of the military too, and in the family. As a dad, I have to give the purpose, the vision, what our family's about, who we try to be as a family unit, and what I hope we're impressing onto the culture and the community around us. But man, I've got to make space for my girls to be them.
Yes.
So when I try to get into that method piece and tell them how to do it, I'm not training them to be the beautiful creations God made them to be. And I'm not teaching them to be flexible. So that's like, I think practically, without talking in theory so much, that's how I try to do it.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we all want to control. And flexible can't control everything. Man. And you and I are a lot like that. Like if I'm a planner, which we are, I like to know I like to know every step of the way.
Yes.
I want to know everything you're doing.
Yes.
Instead of just trusting that the future state is going to look like my intent.
Right.
And that is so hard, man.
Yes. Do you find it, I'll go there for a second, then we got to get to the last part.
Do
you find it easier to do it with your family than with your team?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't find it easier with anybody because I find it.
That's real. That's real.
Because I find it a challenge. I wouldn't say I don't find it easier.
Yeah.
I find it difficult because part of me has been called as a father to be in the weeds of everything that happens with my children.
Okay.
Because I feel like it is my responsibility to raise them up in the way they should go.
Yep.
So because of that, I have to be so much more reliant in my faith on, let's just call it what it is, God to lead me.
Yeah.
and to direct my paths and to not provoke my children to anger, but to raise them up in the nurture of the Lord.
Yeah.
Like to quote the scripture on that, that is the hardest thing for me to do, is to step out of my own way and let him lead.
Yeah.
And show that like he's leading our family, not dad.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a leader, but I'm also following someone. So that's the best way I try to communicate it. But it's not easy because I care about them actually more than the people in the team around me, because they're my children.
Yep.
So that extra passion makes me more passionate about it. And sometimes that brings more of me into it.
I got it.
And it makes it harder sometimes. I don't know. That's just real. How about you?
I actually think it's easier with family.
Okay.
And I only say that because I have found, oh goodness, I don't want to go too off course, but there are just so many other factors when you're dealing with people that you haven't spent maybe a reasonable amount of time with. And I think hopefully, again, my kids are young, so the amount of time that I have spent with them and knowing how I just know them better. I know how they think. I know, am I surprised every now and then? Yeah. But if I give a task, I really like what you said, and I'm going to think about that even more, that it really is about establishing not so much the goal, whatever we're trying to accomplish, but the assignment of it, the establishment of the goal, but the how. I don't need to know everything.
Sure.
I'm more concerned about making sure. I want to see how you figure out how to get there. And I found myself willing to be more flexible with them, and them making errors, and them, making some decisions that may not be as great than I am at work.
Right.
Where I have a tendency, probably from time to time, to dig a little bit deep on things because there isn't, I'm just going to call it, that same level of trust consistently for everyone.
Right.
So it's harder for me to just let it go and to think it's going to get done, or to think it will be done to the level of what I would expect all the time from everyone versus my kids. I feel like this environment, and maybe I'm totally contradicting myself in this moment, Josh, because I'm going, maybe because I control the environment a little bit more is the reason why I feel like I can tell my kids to do something and allow them the space to do it, because I control the environment, right? So maybe there still is a level of control that's happening, whereas work, I don't control it, right? People could do what they want to do. You hope that they follow you based on the influence that you have, the leadership that you have, the trust that you've built. But that can wean and wane depending on the person and the individual. Whereas I feel like with my family, my initial thought is they love me. That them doing something is not, I hate to say it this way, not to say that people in an office or a work environment would do something against you, but I feel like there's a little bit more of a consciousness to do things that are in alignment with what you would want, and them trying to, I hate to use this word, but say it, please. Yeah. And especially as a dad of girls, right? Let's just put it for a second, right? There's clearly that desire to want to get that affirmation, and I'm aware of that. Whereas that isn't always translated as clearly in the workplace.
Well, you nailed it though. I think my response I'm confident my response for why it's more difficult at home, what you said, you took the words out of my brain. I'm keenly aware that it might, on the surface level, the facade level, be easier because I am the dad and they are young girls. But then I look at that in reality, at the depth of that makes it much more challenging to really instill flexibility.
I got you.
Because I'm going like, is this just a thing you're doing because it's daddy?
Right. Ooh.
And because I can control this environment because I'm the man of the house and because we have a loving family. But if I was to watch you outside of the family with your friends, or if I was to ask your friends, how flexible are you or how manipulative and controlling are you? Because you're probably just modeling what you see with me. Yeah. So is my ability to control the environment to then say, I'm so flexible because all my daughters are just, it's easy doesn't mean flexible.
Yeah.
Flexible is revealed under stress.
Yes.
So an easygoing lifestyle void of adversity doesn't prove your flexibility. The concrete that undergoes a lot of trafficking and a lot of freeze-thaw cycles at the end of it, if it hasn't cracked, that is the flexible slab.
Yeah.
The thick slab that cracks once that looked hard but isn't hard, the proof's in the pudding, man. The proof is in the stress, in the adversity, in the stressors. And I think that's so important with this. Like, I'm not talking trauma. I'm talking real confrontation and hard things in life. Yeah. Don't avoid them. You need them to show how flexible am I raising my family unit to be without me in the picture. What choices are my girls making? And I do hear great reports back on them. But I think the letdown when it doesn't happen is heavier for me with them than in the team unit at work.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'd say it's hard. Holistically, it's harder on me and it's harder on my heart. And we're going to dip into this last piece because then like the heart of me is poured wholly into my daughters and into my marriage and into the family. Not from this is a representation of me, but it's like, it's what I don't even have to say it, man.
Yes.
It's who we are.
Yes.
Above all else, it's family unit.
Yes.
So that's where it's like, I think it's the hardest because the weight is heavier.
Yeah.
And the responsibility is solely mine. I can step out of my job and someone could, and should step in there in my place.
Yeah.
Ain't no one else going to be the dad of those 3 little girls or the husband to my wife. Right. So that weight, again, that pressure, that stress is what really reveals my flexibility, my humility, or unfortunately on the flip side, my pride and my rigidity. And that's like, oof, that's hard. And tipping into this last one, I think this is, again, comes from Paul. He wrote a lot of good stuff. I go to him a lot for stuff, man. But in 2 Corinthians 4:7-9, he talks about a treasure in jars of clay. And it says he's shown that the surpassing power belongs to God, not to us. So we're afflicted, but we aren't crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. We're persecuted, but not forsaken. We're struck down, but not destroyed. And we ain't talking trauma. We're just talking life. And it's hard. And if people go like, ooh, how do you and your family flex and endure and you don't splinter apart? You're still together. You're still a solid slab of concrete at the end of the day. To continue with the weird analogy, right? Like, how did you guys not crack and spall and fall away from each other, which is what relationships do? And I have to go, man, it's God. It's not us. You think this is on my own? Nope. Nope.
That's mine.
No, and people don't have to believe the way I do, and I get it. Like, not everybody's going to, but and I'm not even going to be, in my mind, I'm not going to be foolish enough to say, like, believe whatever you want. I don't care. Just believe in a thing. I don't believe that way, so I'm not going to say that to you. Right. I'm going to lovingly just say, I'm not here to chide on you, whatever you do believe that might be different than me. But for me and my house, let me just be Joshua and quote Joshua. As for me and my house, we serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And if you look at me and go like, how is your family still together? If you knew even a smidge of my story, it would blow people away. How is it still a thing? It's not me. That's how it's still a thing. I have an amazing wife who loves God and loves me and loves our girls. And I have amazing children that I've been blessed with. And they are my heritage. You could strip all this away, and they are the heritage that I've been gifted with. Yes. And it's beautiful. So like the heart of me is like the story of how the strength and the flexibility is only powerful if you can show the stressors that it's had to endure. Because it's not impressive if it's been an easy, like mild, temperate Carolina day and there was no freeze-thaw cycle. Nobody ever drove their cars across that concrete. Cool, I hope your slab doesn't crack. It shouldn't. But run it through the cycle a couple times, man.
Right.
And let me see what you got.
Yeah.
And that's the heart. That's the heart of it, man. That's for me. So I don't like, that posture of it, posture of flexibility is, it's got to be humble. It's got to look outside of just, it starts inside of me, but I got to look to like where my heart is rooted and anchored. And what is that? What's that grounding for me? Yeah. But I don't know how this resonates with you, man, because I know it's, I know we share a lot of the same mindsets, but we're in different positions too.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same. I think you have even in this conversation, I don't know if I've ever equated rigidity and pride. And for so long, rigidity for me was more stability, or my perception of it was stability versus being so flexible that you didn't have a standard. And nothing, and what I'm pulling from the conversation is nothing's wrong with having a standard, but you have to watch to make sure that your standard doesn't become pride.
Right.
Because at the point of when it becomes pride, it's subject to fail. It will fail as much as you think you're
Yeah.
trying to protect something. Because that's what people who are very rigid, again, going back to my analogy, the reason why you think your way of doing it is the best way, because there's something about doing it a different way that frightens you, scares you, or you could have had an experience with something, that adversity that you had, that now has caused you to not want to be in that situation, experience that, ever again. But I appreciate, man, I really appreciate just bringing that to the top of my consciousness around.
Yeah.
Be careful, Fred. Like, as much as, again, I have, and I don't mean this in some type of arrogant way, I've had success in my
Yep.
rigidity of being so structured that I'm doing the same thing. Like, you're going to get the same result from me over and over again, especially if it's a path that has been proven. Yet, that same mentality extended too far can get into a place of pridefulness. And I think that's that consciousness that I appreciate just in my heart, because that's never my intent. It's never my intent to think that I am so smart, so intelligent, that I am the only person who knows anything and everything, and I have no ability to be
Right.
flexible to others for other thought, for other direction, other ways of doing things.
Mhm.
So I think it's
And there's a difference too. Let me just say this
Yeah.
so people don't hear it
Go too far,
incorrectly. Right? Like, I'm not saying there are no moral absolutes.
yes,
And for the people that say that, I would say, are you absolutely sure? Because that's a definitive statement, right? So, like, there are moral absolutes. Like, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 11; it equals 2, right? So, like, there are scientific and natural laws
yes.
and moral absolutes. So, I'm not saying that you got to flex on that and try to find a way around it.
No,
And now you're just being a weasel and you don't have a spine. I'm not talking about not having strength of character. Like, if anything, that's why I chose concrete, because it just has a strong essence to it.
Right.
It's a good substance, and the characteristics of it don't change.
Right.
When you cut an expansion joint, you could do a core sample on either side of that expansion joint, and they should and would look relatively identical. Like, it's the same, like, strong thing, but it just has the ability to forecast and be designed to flex.
Yes.
And so, like, that's not what I want people to hear, is be like, oh, flexible means flimsy.
No.
It means whimsical. It means you don't have a spine. No, it doesn't.
No.
It means you're a wise person.
Yes.
And you're a humble person. And then when you need to be, when there is a moral absolute, people will trust you because they trust your flexibility.
Yes.
And then you say, and this time it's going this way.
Right.
And this is why, and we will not bend today.
Right.
But hopefully you've built up that trust through not always being so rigid and about yourself that they can trust you.
Yeah.
And man, the biggest, most glaring mirror of that in my life is with my little girls and with my wife.
Absolutely.
The thing literally closest to home, because it's inside the home.
Yeah.
That is, like, if I'm not willing to listen to their rebuke or correction, or, hey, this is how it came across, like, that better humble me and drive me to change my ways and my behaviors immediately, faster than anything.
Yeah.
That's the biggest check for me, and it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think in closing this out, I really like in Romans, it says, if possible, so far as it depends on you. Again, it's internal. It's a personal decision. Don't be wagging your finger at everybody else. It says, as far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all.
Yeah.
And when it comes to being flexible, however you need to shift your posture to be peaceable and to be a kind person to all, as long as it depends on you. I'm not talking about what they did. I'm talking about what you did.
Yes.
Are you able to flex your desires and your posture and your heart to just be at peace with the people around you and to be a comforting space for people around you? And I will say this to you because you said it, but I want people to hear the Fred that I know, because it might seem silly, but it's not, because it popped into my head right before we clicked record. We were in Disney and we had a plan of we're going to do this and that and the other. And Fred and I, man, it was so good to catch up with him. We stood in like 90-minute lines in the smoldering heat in Paris. And we're like, oh, for like a quick ride. Yo, we loved it for the girls. I'm not saying that's a once in a lifetime, but that's not a frequent occasion that we're going to be doing that sort of thing. Goodness gracious, I only have so much tolerance, baby. But while we're standing there talking and there's some things we wanted to do, we thought, hey, and Fred and I, let's set an agenda. Let's pull up the map. We're going to do this. And then, as always, things start to fall apart at the seams. There were, each of us have 3 little girls. It's in the heat of the day. They're hungry. They want naps. They want candy. They want whatever. And even the adults were like, I'm sort of getting over this too. And I remember distinctly, I said, and it wasn't in like a smug, whatever, screw it sort of response. I just said, hey, they had wanted to do this. What do you do? And he looked at me and said, you know what, man? Of course I had a plan, but I truly don't care what we do. He said, if everyone's having a good time and our girls have a good time and the wives are happy, he said, it's whatever. And that wasn't a flippant, but like that sounds funny. But as a husband, instead of being so staunch on like, we're going to do this. Yes. No, kids, because you could just make them do what you wanted.
Yes.
And they had, my daughters had such a beautiful time. And I wanted to wait till this moment of the episode to tell you, but like all 3 of them, I said, I'm going to go record with Mr. Fred. And they said verbatim, man, Aria said, oh, tell Mr. Fred hi. And I love him and the girls. And it plays like, so they're sharing just such this beautiful memory. And like my daughter's saying, tell Fred that I love him. And I love the girls, and tell the daughters and Miss Donnie hi. And like, they love your family. Yeah, but man, it's because the space you make is to connect. And it might seem like a small move of flexibility, but for a dad in a frustrating environment to go like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I will do whatever the general masses of the sea of estrogen want to do, because that's what we need here, baby. But when you say, I don't know if I do it well, I would say your ability to just naturally respond that way is proof to me of the man you are, that I know you to be, man. That's just who you are. So like, you're doing it good. I know we ain't always crushing it, but you got Aria to say, tell Mr. Fred I love him and I want to say hi to the girls. So maybe it wouldn't have been the same. Maybe it wouldn't have been the same if you would have been like yanking him around. We ain't even going to get into the other story. That's for me and you. These people ain't hearing that one. There was almost a traumatic experience, not adversity. Adversity almost tipped into trauma, but that's for me and Fred. Y'all ain't got the yet.
Oh, gosh. I love that we have these memories. I know that we all had, and we really did have a great time, man. Like, you're so right. It's this topic is such an example of a part of that trip, of getting to
everything.
Just acknowledging, right? When you see things,
timelines just going to hell in a handbasket. Just gone. What we doing? I said, yo, you want to meet at the park when it opens an hour early? He said, we show up when we showing up, man. I'll text you when we're there. I was like, you're like, I thought it was 8:30. I don't even care. Maybe flexibility sometimes, just throwing in the towel. I don't know.
That's real. You gotta get to a point, you just gotta let it go. You're like, you know what? Stressing about trying to control this situation. And the thing is, I enjoyed it so much more then. When I let go of my plans and what I wanted to accomplish for the girls, we all had a good time. Now,
it was great.
Was it exactly the way I thought it was going to play out? No, but it was fine. It was good for what it needed to be. They were happy. I was happy. They were happy. And we were good. We were good. But it
did awesome. Include on occasion looking at one of our girls like sporadically throughout. They're like, I want to go this ride. And we look at it's like an 80-minute wait. Who's going to ride that with you? Oh, it's just me. Nope, we ain't doing that. So you can be rigid in certain areas. You don't have to flex to everything. You ain't got to let one little girl waste almost an hour and a half of your life for something she'll probably back out of. My daughter would have backed out and not done it anyway. So now you're emotionally scarred, and we stood around for an hour and a half. So you got to apply a little bit of wisdom.
Oh, gosh.
All right, as we close this out, back over to you. But anything you got as we dial this down?
No, man, I've said all I need to say. Remain flexible, folks. Remain flexible. You will enjoy life much better being flexible, first and foremost, open to God's will, but also making sure that you are focused on connecting with people. If your desire and your intent is to connect, find a way to connect if that means you need to be flexible with your kids, with your spouse, with your coworkers, with people that support you at work. Just learn to be flexible. It's not a bad thing.
It's not. Get out your own way. Yeah. Make a difference. Don't just try to make a point. Get back to good. Be flexible. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Back to Good. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Fred and I are honored to be a part of your story today. We hope this conversation has helped bring your head, hands, and heart back to good.